I know. The title itself is practically begging detractors and film canon loyalists to go off in the comment section, but I can't help myself. I love Rope. Of all of Hitchcock's masterful gifts to the cinema and of all of his crowning achievements, I think this 1948 crime thriller is hands down his best film and one that is criminally underrated. The master of suspense directed more than 60 feature-length films in his life and earned 5 Best Director Academy Award nominations. His work has been championed since his silent film debut in his native country of England. He has since been awarded accolades of greatness for practically taking over the thriller and horror genre of films and television from the 1930s into the 70s. It goes without saying, but Hitchcock has bangers. Psycho, Vertigo, The Birds, Rear Window, and North by Northwest are perhaps his most iconic films. They are revered among critics so fervently that they've become required viewing for anyone that considers themselves movie lovers. But these films are mere fragments within an impressive tapestry of influential, celebrated films by Hitchcock. And nestled snugly within the fabric of his career is a seemingly simple, slow-burn thriller called Rope. A film that I, along with a small group of other fans, consider to be his single best picture. Now, saying that I think it's his best doesn't mean I'm saying that any of his other pictures are worse or deemed unworthy. I'm simply stating that I go back to Rope repeatedly as a cinematic experience, and I'm emotionally invested and wowed each and every time. Plus, I think film canon should be revisited every generation and updated accordingly. Psycho is still one of the greatest films of all time, but if I had to pick a Hitchcock film to introduce to an up-and-coming movie lover, without a doubt, I'd pick Rope. And here are 7 reasons why I love this movie so much. Reason number 1, the set decoration. I don't know if it's possible to be a classic movie fan and not have an appreciation for set design. Old Hollywood put a tremendous amount of focus into living and work spaces, and most were directly influenced by art movements in their time. In Rope, mid-century modern interior design was in its glorious infancy, and Brandon and Philip's swanky but livable penthouse acts as a sign of the times, representing a restrained take on luxury and excess in a post-war American home. Our 2 criminal leads believe themselves superior to others, enough so that they kill an innocent man, hide his body in a chest, then host a cocktail party just for the thrill of it. So naturally, their home would reflect the same calculating superiority. This era of modernism moved away from frilly, more ornate ideas of wealth and design present in the former part of the century, and instead gave way to more geometric, simplified furniture with an emphasis on function. With exception to the first 2 minutes of opening credits centered on an establishing shot of our central location, Rope takes place inside of main characters Brandon and Philip's high-rise Manhattan apartment. Despite the claustrophobic atmosphere that eventually entangles Philip in particular throughout the film, the lived space of their apartment is soothing and calm. Simply put, I'd kill to entertain my friends in this space, and that's all thanks to the film's art director, Perry Ferguson, along with set decorators Harold Bristol and Emile Courier. The film's jewel-toned color palette is emphasized by those gorgeous emerald chairs that I just need to have in my home, like ASAP, and complemented by a mahogany coffee table and a rosewood finished grand piano. Although function takes precedent over form in this home, the flex of wealth is still paramount. Just look at that strangely long 5 to 8-seater couch that lines the back wall, those paintings, and that chest that holds David's dead body for the duration of the film. As Brandon mentions,
Cassone, I got in Italy.
A marriage chest from the Renaissance era that belongs in a museum and not in a New York City apartment. Reason number 2, the outfits. I'm not a fashion historian, so I won't go into the history of men's fashion in the 1940s. However, I noticed that the cut and the fitting of the suits here are different from Hitchcock's earlier films like Rebecca in 1940 or Spellbound from 1945. In Rope, everyone looks dapper and flattering in their slim-fitted tailor suits, accented by bold, rich colors made even more vibrant thanks to the use of Technicolor. But the standout here is Janet in her red wine-colored dress topped with a stitched floral pattern and complete with Gidget sleeve-inspired shoulders and elbows that billow out. Designed by the king of old Hollywood fashion and gowns, Adrian, Janet's dress feels like a throwback to the 1930s. More specifically, Adrian's well-known Letty Linton dress worn by Joan Crawford in 1932. But Janet's dress here is also both modern and forward-thinking. Despite everybody looking so good in their outfits and Rope, that's not the only reason that I love the outfits. I think what makes these quote-unquote perfect is how the clothes further gives the audience insight into the class consciousness of this group of people. This is a casual cocktail party among close friends and family. Unlike a film like Dinner at 8 from 1933, where a group of rich people are invited to a dinner party to flaunt their status amongst one another, here in Rope, these people all know each other. This is just a small get-together arranged for a book exchange and drinks before a vacation. The way that everyone comes dressed to the nines shows a ritual of the rich that's both fascinating and ridiculous. Reason number 3, Jimmy Stewart. First and foremost, I absolutely adore Jimmy Stewart. Now, Paul Newman is technically my favorite star, and that will never change, but Jimmy Stewart is by far my favorite actor. However, no one, including Stewart, thought he was the right fit for the role of Rupert, Philip and Brandon's former college headmaster, and the initial culprit that planted the idea of human superiority in their heads. Farley Granger himself spoke a little bit about this in a video that I posted on TCM's YouTube channel a few years ago.
Someone like James Mason or somebody would have been more interesting, that had a little sinister bite to him, you know.
Yes, this is shameless self-promotion of the series that I added to the channel when I work there. I highly recommend that anybody who's a fan of old Hollywood just watch the entire series of old interviews. It's phenomenal. I'll put the link in the description. Despite this, Hitchcock paid the actor $300,000 on a budget of $1.5 million, a payout equivalent today of $3.7 million. And in my opinion, it was money well spent. In the original onstage production, Rupert was written as an effeminate Oscar Wilde type character, but Stewart comes in and plays it straight, for a lack of better words. It's a decision that's ultimately just Jimmy Stewart being Jimmy Stewart, but I think it exalts the film into the stratosphere of greatness. The sexual tension gets cut by this dry, sardonic professor who's part curmudgeon and part devil's advocate. Stewart's Rupert therefore becomes an ideal foil to Philip and Brandon's plans and the film's comic relief, bringing a strange air of whimsy, even as his own skepticism serves as an appropriate plot device that helps the story unfold. Also, there are a few moments that can be read as Brandon having an unrequited devotion to Rupert, which leads to my number 4. Reason number 4, Farley Granger and John Dahl, aka the gay subtext. Writer Arthur Laurent was hired to adapt the openly gay-themed stage play Rope's End for the screen. In part due to his own sexuality, the film undoubtedly presents a gay subtext that by today's standards feels blatantly front and center. Case in point.
May I use the phone?
Of course, it's in the bedroom.
How cozy.
Notice how Brandon never says my bedroom or Philip's bedroom. The gay angle is made all the more apparent due to the performances of Farley Granger and John Dahl. But this video isn't about both actors' personal lives or their queerness. Although if you want details on it, I highly recommend watching Matt Baum's video on Rope. I'll add the link in the description. Granger and Dahl's sexuality don't define them as actors, but I think it's largely the reason why their chemistry and Rope work so well together. They're toxic, tender, passionate, and together they're frankly hot, giving a deeply understated depth to their dynamic. At times, Granger oversells his performance, but Dahl falls back cool and calm. Other time, the opposite rings true, but both actors perfectly balance out the other, displaying an interaction between Philip and Brandon that gives us all the background we need to understand their relationship. It's obvious that late-night conversations and intimate moments have transpired between these two, and that they're more than just friends. Through their chemistry, we're also made aware that Brandon has used Philip's feelings for him to his advantage to get what he wants: admiration, devotion, and compliance. They're two well-written characters whose queerness isn't the reason they're killers, but it's an added dimension to who these men are and how their relationship operates. Dahl's performance is charming and level-headed, with the balance of overly confident dominance that makes Brandon a devilishly alluring character to watch. To this day, John Dahl's performance here and in Gun Crazy, another criminally underrated film, makes him one of my favorite stars of this era. Reason number 5, camera as character. You can watch practically any Hitchcock film and understand why he's a master of craft in filmmaking. Rope is no different. Nevertheless, this film isn't filled with flashy moments or innovative shots, which is why I think Rope has largely gone overlooked. Some may view it as nothing more than a film stage play at first glance, but to see Rope as such is to ignore the rich subtleties of Hitchcock's techniques as a director. As any article or video about the making of Rope will attest, the film is comprised of 10 separate takes meant to create one seemingly long take shot. All of that magic used to create this quote-unquote one-take picture was happening behind the scenes while filming. The entire set was rigged with wheels and strategically placed crew members who could Houdini the set and the actors away and back together at will. But what I love is just how unfathomable the tracking shots still seem to be, giving the audience an incredible scope of the living space that we're in ways that seem simply impossible. The camera is not an omnipotent presence able to be anywhere and in all places. We're limited in what we can see and what we focus on and where our attention lies. Our point of view feels reminiscent of being in a dreamlike situation, or even as if we're at the party ourselves. We're present and listening at times, but then we zone out every now and then, lost in thought. My favorite example of this is when Mrs. Wilson is cleaning the apartment after the party and the camera sits to the left of the frame while the partygoers are out of frame on the right discussing David's whereabouts. Mrs. Wilson is centered as she walks back and forth through the apartment, getting closer and closer to discovering David's dead body. It's so simple, and yet I've never seen another film do this before, and it would take until the 1970s before I would see it done again with the likes of Robert Altman. Don't quote me on that, I haven't looked that up. Reason number 6, the lighting. Hitchcock wanted to show a natural progression of the day throughout the runtime of the film, even reshooting entire segments just to make sure the lighting was correct. Watching the light of the early evening fade into the darkness of night is a beautifully orchestrated situation within Rope. By the time the film ends, Brandon and Philip's apartment is flooded with the oscillating glow of neon greens, reds, and white lights from outside billboards. Envy, rage, and innocence all spilling from the outside street, reflecting a complex reality indoors. Once again, the social mobility granted to these men who are products of nepotism is incomprehensible when looking at their view of the city. We see how close they are to the billboards high above in the sky. It's poetic symbolism that these two men who get to look down on New York City every day would consider everything below them inferior. The fact that everything in the film's background is a constructed set created on the Warner Brothers lot makes me that much more appreciative of Hitchcock's artistry as a world builder. The city feels real and alive, making the innocent murder of David even more brutal and gut-wrenching. The interior lighting is also perfectly situated, and it's all a reminder that there was a wonderful team of talented artists behind the camera. Reason number 7, the message. I won't go in too much depth here because if you've seen Rope, then you know the message. Laurent's script and the ending monologue feels like it should have been tied to a Frank Capra picture rather than Hitchcock because of the social implications present. Jimmy Stewart's ending monologue held weight at the time because Stewart had recently returned to the States after fighting against fascism in the war. But the sad reality is that while Laurent's words were planted in the past, they still rang all too clear as warnings today. We continue to exist in a world where a person's personal beliefs makes them feel superiority over other human lives. Because of this, they empower lawmakers, politicians, and guns to control the day-to-day existence and pursuit of happiness for others they deem inferior, killing innocent people in the process. It's tragic how we refuse to learn lessons from the past and instead we want to repeat them. Rope marked Hitchcock's first time working with James Stewart and Farley Granger, both of whom would later reunite with Hitch for their most iconic films with the director and arguably of their careers. Rope's long take idea would mark an innovative style of directing that would have influence on films and television for years to come. Rope fell into slight obscurity for some time after its release before being re-evaluated in the 1990s. It continues to be revisited today, and I am very glad it does because it is a fantastic movie. Despite my thoughts, I recognize there are some flaws in the film's overall execution.
Oh, you've hurt your hand.
Oh, it's nothing, just a little cut.
What happened?
Nothing. The glass was cracked and it broke, that's all.
These hands will bring you great fame.
But that doesn't detract from the picture's enjoyment. If you haven't seen Rope, I sincerely hope this video has inspired you to do so, and then come back and let me know what you think. Any of you out there Rope fans? Are there elements that I didn't mention that you love about this movie? Let me know in the comments, and please like and subscribe for more content like this.